I want to bring in Dr. Marty Cetron of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. He's the Director of Global Migration and Quarantine. Dr. Cetron, thanks very much for joining us. Here's the question. We've known about MERS, for 2 years. How much do you, the experts, really know about this?
Well, thanks for the question. I think there's a lot more that we have to learn, and we look at the emergence of these viruses as an important opportunity to actually characterize the risks in the transmission and the settings, and so that we can help shape our guidance into the future. And viruses can change, and so I think that we've learned some over the last 2 years, but there's many gaps to fill. And your correspondent had the assessment and the balance just right in terms of who should be concerned and who should not be worried. I think that grouping is exactly on target right now. And
you do believe that about a third of those who come down with SIRS will die, is that right?
You know, it's really hard to assess the case fatality rates at the beginning of an epidemic, because often what happens is the most serious and hospitalized cases, the ICU cases, they get counted first, and surely they're at greater risk of dying. And sometimes we don't know the true number of people infected. So often as an investigation goes on or an epidemic progresses, the case fatality rate comes down as we learn more. But that's something that's still under investigation. And I think that any type of virus that has even an early case fatality rate of 1/3 is something to be taken seriously.
Obviously, very seriously. Here's the question. Are certain people more vulnerable than others? I assume older people, for example, or very, very young kids might be more vulnerable. Is that right?
No, I think that's very fair. And typically what we're seeing with this virus is among the people who get severe illness or who go on and die of this illness, they tend to be older, and they tend to be people that have underlying chronic health conditions who are more vulnerable to any type of infection. We see this during influenza seasons and other types of viral infections. So yes, in fact, the case fatality rate among those who are vulnerable tend to be much higher, and the case fatality among the younger, healthier person tends to be much lower in this outbreak of MERS so far.
Dr. Cetron, Elizabeth Cohen has a question for you. Elizabeth, go ahead.
Dr. Cetron, I was wondering, there's a lot of concern about those passengers who were on those flights with the Florida case of MERS. Have we ever heard of someone getting MERS from being on a plane with an infected person?
No. So far, with the over 500 cases reported, we have not had a single case that's known to be transmitted in an airplane. And we are basically doing this investigation, as you indicated, not only out of an abundance of caution for respect for this virus, but to confirm that that is in fact the case and that we aren't seeing any asymptomatic or mild infections among these passengers who may pose a risk. So I think that you had it exactly right in your lead in there. The people that we are most concerned about who are really close, intimate contact include family members and healthcare worker settings where there's a lot more vulnerability. And we are reaching out to these airline passengers just to check up on all of them, make sure they're well, offer them an opportunity to be tested, and confirm. In the first introduction in Indiana, we've reached 100% of the airline passengers, and we've had no secondary spread so far. And we'll continue to do that with these flights in the second case in Florida.
In the CDC health advisory that you put out, Dr. Cetron, it says wash your hands often, avoid touching your face, avoid close contact with sick people. How do you get this disease? How contagious is it?
Well, we certainly need to know a lot more about the transmission characteristics of this disease, but from the first 500+ cases so far, it appears that you need close contact with the secretions of somebody who's actually sick with this virus. And so this is not something you get by casual exposure in a community. We've not seen any community transmission, sustained community transmission, and it's certainly not as contagious as, for example, the measles virus, which has a very, very high reproductive rate and is much more contagious. In fact, it doesn't even appear to be as contagious as the influenza virus in its current setting.
Let's hope that you guys find a solution to this and find some sort of cure, some sort of preventive vaccine if necessary as well. Dr. Marty Cetron, thanks very much. Elizabeth Cohen, always thanks to you as well.